Hello and welcome back everyone. So we'll talk in this video about questionnaires and data collection sheets. So when I first started doing research, I did not know which variables to include and which variables to not include. So let's begin. So if you're using a cross-sectional study, they usually use a questionnaire or survey. So in details, there is a difference, but for the sake of understanding, they are the same. So let's say you want to do a cross-sectional study and you already have a research question. So the first thing that you want to do after you have written the proposal and everything, you want to look for an already validated questionnaire. So sometimes there are international institutions or international questionnaires that are used globally. So for breast cancer awareness, there is an already known validated questionnaire, as well as when it comes to depression, assessing depression and anxiety, like the patient healthcare questionnaire. So let's check out some of them. So here I have already looked for the patient health questionnaires. So this is by the American Association of Psychology, and here there are several variables, almost 9 questions, and it's a sliding scale, so not at all, several days, more than half. So it's a scoring system. So this is one of the well-known questionnaires that you may have come across. As well, there is the breast cancer awareness. So you can look it up. Yes, and here you can find the variables as well. So first you want to check that if there is an already validated questionnaires or not. Sometimes you may not find a suitable one for your research question, so you can design one and validate it yourself. So how can you do that? So before we proceed to this, so there's questionnaire design and validation. So in order to design a questionnaire, you want to do a literature review, be as specific to your research idea as possible. And again, you need to check first if there's international or well-known questionnaires that we've mentioned previously. And sometimes you would find questionnaires designed by previous researchers. So first you would want to check if there's an international questionnaire or not. Then if there isn't one, try to look in the literature into something or a questionnaire that is similar to your research idea that you can use. If you couldn't find, if you found one that is already published that was designed by a previous researcher, you can contact them. You will find something called the corresponding author, and this is the author that contacts the journal, as well as for any readers who are interested in using their questionnaire or their paper, or they want their data, they can contact them. So just contact them and obtain their permission to use it for your study, preferably before you submit for an IRB submission. Why is it important to ask for permission? Because sometimes you would use their questionnaire and you would reach the publication stage, then the authors of those study will say, no, we did not give our permission to use it or not. So it's always better, it's just to be safe, to ask for permission. So how can you validate a questionnaire? So before we go to the validation process, let's go to how can you design it. So let's go to the literature review file. What you want to do is you would go to the method section first. So here in the method section, they mentioned that this is the second section. It includes 21 statements using the agree, neutral, disagree. Research previously evaluated by this study, and they referenced it. Then items include 11 positive. It was also used in another study and nationally by another study. So they mentioned several studies. What I would recommend in order to construct a questionnaire is you would go straight to the tables. So here they use the age. They use it in a category manner. So 18 to 19, 20 to 21, 20 to 23, 24 to 25. You can use the age, the gender, the academic year. Sometimes some of them may not be relevant to your study. So for example, father and maternal educational status might not be relevant to your study idea. GPA is also an important aspect, so you can use it as a variable. You can use it as categories, or you can make it continuous if you would prefer. Here you can, the grade of the research course, attended previous extracurricular research training, most recent research supervisor academic rank. So you can use each one, you can use variables from this paper, for example. Then you would go to another paper and you again go to the tables and see which are the variables that they use. So you want to include variables that are relevant to your study idea, and you want to be as specific as possible. So you don't include variables that are not relevant unless you want to add unless you want to use the same data for another research project. So how can you validate a questionnaire or survey? So there are several ways to do it. There's the statistical manner, where you would use the Cochrane alpha coefficient factor, I believe. This is a statistical manner. However, I'm not really familiar with it. There's another simple manner that you can do. So there's you can use the phase validity. So after you constructed your questionnaire and it's really specific, then you would review it with your research supervisor to see if they want to add or remove anything. And then you would give it to 2 medical educationists to review it. So to give you feedback, okay, you tell them this is my research question and this is the questionnaire that I designed. And they will tell you that this might not be relevant, this is relevant, you need to reword this in a better manner. Once you're done, you would give it to 2 experts in the field to review it, and this is what we call content validity. So you would take your questionnaire, for example, if you're doing a study in something you're interested in, for example, let's say I'm interested in ENT, and I already constructed a questionnaire to assess the burnout rates or satisfaction rates within the specialty. So I would take the questionnaire and I would send it to 2 otolaryngology consultants and ask them for feedback regarding everything regarding the questionnaire. So wording, if something is relevant or not, and they would give you feedback. And this is what we call content validity. Once you're done with phase validity and content validity, you can do a pilot study where you would get ideally 20 to 30 participants to fill the questionnaire and give feedback on length. So for example, if it's long, if it's short, and the content, if something isn't clear or needs better wording, and the clarity as well. So ideally you would get 20 participants. Sometimes you would get 10 to 15 in order to fill your survey and give you feedback. So questionnaire translation. Sometimes you can get someone who knows both English and your native language to do it, and just an external translator where you would give them your questionnaire and they would translate it to your native language. So for example, sometimes you want to do a study on the general public, and not everyone from the general public knows how to speak English or how to read English. So you want to translate it to your native language without losing the content, so you can answer your research question. So you can get just an external translator to do it. You can also do it yourself. I have read paper where one of the co-authors translated the questionnaire, so that is okay as well. It's always better to have 2 translators if possible, so nothing gets lost in the translation. So there is a specific manner where you would send your questionnaire or survey to 2 external translators, and they would translate it into your native language. Then you would compare between their translation, and then you would combine it into one. And this is a long process, I would say. So I would recommend just getting someone, one person, external translator to do it for you. Or you can do it yourself as well. So there's also something called the data collection sheet. So you may want to ask, is there any difference between questionnaires and data collection sheets? So usually there isn't much of a difference, but questionnaires, they require validation, where data collection sheet you would just collect variables from several studies, then you would reference those studies in the methods section. So how to design a data collection sheet? So it's like questionnaires, but no validation process. Again, you would do the literature review, then you would go into the tables and you want to see what are the variables that previous study have used to answer the similar research question or the same research question. And any variables that you use from any study, it's better to just reference it. Once you are done, let your research supervisor review your work to remove and or add variables. So sometimes you would start when you create a good data collection sheet or a questionnaire, and if it's a questionnaire, you validate it, and once you have all variables ready, then you collect the data. Once you're done with collecting the data, you already have everything, so you're not missing something. If you have missed something and you did not design it well, meaning you are going to go back and collect the data again, and this can be a hectic process and take much more time. Something else that I would recommend doing, once you're done with all of the variables and your research supervisor have agreed to it, try to design the tables and see which variables you want to run statistical analysis or a statistical test to see if there's any association between any two variables. Creating the tables early on and having a clear vision for your result section makes it much easier. For me, sometimes when I did a data collection sheet or a questionnaire, they may have not been sufficient enough. So once we were done, it made it really difficult to finalize that project. So keep that in mind and design something that is strong, review it, let your research supervisor review it, also review it with your co-authors if possible, and make sure it answers your research question and that it's not too long or not too short. Sometimes it might be too long, but you are collecting data for several research projects instead of just one. So keep that in mind as well, and I hope you find this helpful, and best of luck.